title this morning is Turn, 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 which has to do with the turning of the earth and the circles and what goes around comes around. This time last year, as I was getting ready to go to the field licensing program at Unity Village, I go every year. I help train and supervise all the new ministers coming into the Unity movement, and I take 2 weeks each year in March and go to the village and do that. And I know when I went last year, I knew Bill was leaving, and I was thinking, wow, maybe I'd better not. Maybe I'd better not this year, but I decided to do it. So now here I am this year going again, and I'm thinking of all the things that have happened in the last year. We are definitely going through a season of change. We opened the school last year, and that made a big change. And then Bill left, and that made a big change. And Heidi was in that accident, and that made a big change. I became the acting senior minister, and on June 1st, I can remember standing in my office looking out at the fountain going, holy cow, I'm the only one standing. But you all were wonderful. Everyone here was wonderful. There was a search to launch, and we did. There were funds to raise, and we did. There were programs and Sunday services to set up, and we did. We did it all. We celebrated Thanksgiving and Christmas and Kwanzaa and Burning Bowl and the Whitestone ceremony. And we're all still here. And this month, with all of your help, we still have this magnificent ship headed straight into the wind where it is supposed to be going. And this month, with the arrival of Reverend Tim, there will be even more change coming. So when you decide that change is your theme for a talk, in my world, I was trained, the next thing you do is you figure out what you can use as a Bible verse or Bible quote or something from some kind of scripture. So that wasn't hard. I went straight to Ecclesiastes. Turn, turn, for everything there is a season. That's great. That's an easy one. No brainer, no problem, until I started working on Ecclesiastes. And then I discovered that nobody knows how old it is. It might be from the Persians, which is 400 or 500 BCE, or it might be Greek, which is 100 BCE. No one can really be sure about that. Oh, and did I mention that no one knows who wrote it? It's a sort of a fictional autobiography, and there's a king, a character, this king in it, and the voices change. Sometimes it's a king, sometimes it's a teacher. It isn't sure, and this person speaks of his search for wisdom. He relates his conclusions, and he recognizes his limitations, and he gives us advice on how to live our lives, while at the same time he reflects philosophically on life's problems and meaning. It's part of the wisdom literature, so that gives you a little bit of a hook. Wisdom literature is pretty popular these days, and what that was used for in those ancient times was a kind of way of training young scholars and administrators and these young men that were taking up careers in high officialdom. It was a sort of a Harvard University of its day. This is where you trained sort of the upper level bureaucrats. They used Ecclesiastes. But there's one really strange thing about Ecclesiastes, and that is no one can figure out why anyone included it in the Bible. It makes no sense at all. The common themes in the Hebrew scriptures are of a God who cherishes his people, who punishes his people, who perhaps saves his people. He has a chosen people. None of that is in Ecclesiastes. All of those themes are completely absent. Might have been written by Solomon. Solomon was a great king, built an amazing temple, which the Babylonians proceeded to tear down. That might have been enough to make him depressed so that he could write things like a time to love and a time to hate, a time to fight and a time to kill and a time to, there's a certain line of cynicism that runs through Ecclesiastes. It belongs to perhaps a genre of skepticism where I don't believe in goodness and I certainly don't believe in a God who will take care of me. There's one scholar who says, in short, we do not know why or how this book found its way into such esteemed company. So there I am. Now I've got change, and now we have this useless book. And I'm going through the week wondering, what in the world am I going to do with this talk? Yesterday I did a memorial for a wonderful woman named Mary Kuhlman, and they were talking about the seasons in her life. I could relate. She and I were roughly the same age. She was a child of the 60s. We were brought up on Joan Baez and Peter, Paul, and Mary and social justice and turn, turn, turn. So here was the link. I thought, this is good. Her daughter told me I reminded her of her mother. And I was sitting here thinking about the world turning while they were doing some things that the family was doing. And I was thinking about turning, and right into my talk, right into my head came a group of Indians. Indians, mind you. And they wouldn't leave. I kept saying, go away, I have a memorial to do. No, we're here. You have to listen to us. So then I thought, well, what is this? It's about the talk. What do you mean Indians in my talk about turn, turn, turn? That isn't going to work. It would not let go of me. The Indians came home with me. There I was yesterday working on my talk thinking, I don't know what to do here. I can't explain this. But for some reason, there was this influence that was determined to be heard this morning. So not knowing what else to do, I decided to go to the Miwoks. They're local, after all. They're friends and neighbors. They're right here. Not too hard. It's not too complicated. We've got Ulumpali, two miles up the road. We have got the Miwok village that's just over the kind of not down far from my house. There's a shell mound in Marinwood. There's a real good chance that they walked back and forth here, for this very land was where the fishing and the crops and the various things were. In our house is built in an old walnut orchard, and there is an old walnut tree still there. And we were working out in the garden, and we actually found some of those, is it the mortar or the pestle, the thing that grinds? We didn't, yeah, the pestle. We found 2 in our yard. And I thought, that's exciting. The museum is going to want to know about them. So I trucked over to the Miwok Museum at the park, and I said, look, I've got these really cool things. I found them in the yard. Isn't this neat? And they said, go put them back in the yard. That's where they belong. Don't put them in our museum. Put them back in the yard. So with all that in mind, I know that the Miwoks must have been here. They are members of 4 sort of linguistically related tribes that are indigenous to Northern California. The word Miwok means people. There is a dominant theory that the way the Americas got settled was by the Indians or the indigenous peoples migrating across the Bering Sea Bridge and coming down into the United States or the Americas 20,000 years ago. But there is a little more current theory that the Miwoks came here from Siberia via the ocean about 3,000 years ago. So the Miwoks are a coastal people. And for sure, they walked back and forth here. We live at the southern end of the Miwok Nation, and it's pretty clear that there's something that our geographical ancestors are wanting to say. Then I thought, Ecclesiastes is about 3,000 years old. Our Miwoks are about 3,000 years old. And yes, they're geographically diverse, but isn't it possible that maybe both tribes have something to say? I am willing to bet that no matter where we are, no matter what tribe we belong to, in our community alone, there is a time for everything and a season for every purpose under heaven. And that would have been as important in Ecclesiastes as it is to the Miwoks. So with that in mind, I thought, well, let's look at some of the things that are important. There's a time to be born. Well, sure enough, Stephanie Listug and her husband, Max, a child of Unity, had a baby 2 weeks ago. So now there's a brand new baby in Unity in Marin. There's a time to die. Some of our older members have made their transition in the last year, and some of them still are aging very rapidly and will likely be gone this time next year. There's a time to tear down. Well, yeah, look at this. We bought this old, ratty, water sort of infested chapel back in 2000. There's a time to build. Baby, look at us now. Look at what we've done. There's a time to search. A year ago, we launched a search for a new minister. A time to give up. We found him. We can all stand down. He's coming on March 24th. There'll be plenty to do, but in the meantime, we can get back to business. There's a time to keep. Oh, yeah. We're cleaning up all those old files and memorabilia that we found here that had been in the corner of my office for I don't know how long. And it's a time to figure out what to keep of those pictures and all of that old stuff, and a time to throw away. So I'm here to announce that we're having a cleanup day on Saturday, April 6th. And we are going to clean out the attic. I bet you didn't even know we had an attic. So bring your cleaning gloves and such, because there is a time to throw away. A time to love. Oh, yes. This is metaphysics. It's all about love. And I would argue that here we diverge from the skeptics, for in my view, there is never a time to hate. In Unity, we live by 5 principles. The first principle tells us that God, Spirit, love, whatever you choose to call it, is here, always present, always here, always among us. And it is all there is. And now, more than ever, is definitely a time to love. So you see how all this works. Ministers come and go. Beloved friends come and go. People die, babies are born, children grow up, and Unity in Marin stands where our Indian forebears used to walk. Who knows what else went on right here, and who knows what will go on after us. But know that right here, right now, on this day, we are located on the shoulders of our forebears. Whatever is has already been, and what will be has been before, and God will call it all to account. In conclusion, I looked to see if I could find some kind of quote or thought, but the Miwoks weren't known for writing things down. So there aren't a lot of quotes and things from Miwok elders. But there is some from an Indian called Black Elk. And Black Elk was a famous medicine man and holy man who was an Ogallala Sioux. And he lived in what is now South Dakota. He was part of the battle at Wounded Knee. He was the cousin of Crazy Horse, and probably Black Elk was the most influential Native American leader of the 20th century. Black Elk tells us, "You have noticed that everything an Indian does is in a circle. And that's because the power of the world always works in circles, and everything tries to be round. The sky is round, and I have heard that the earth is round, like a ball, and so are all the stars. The wind in its greatest power whirls. Birds make their nests in circles, for theirs is the same religion as ours. Even the seasons form a great circle in their changing and always coming back to where they were. The life of a human is a circle, from childhood to childhood, and so it is in everything where power moves. And so it is. Amen.